Welcome to One More Hour, the podcast all about backyard ultras, timed races, and the ultra running mindset of going one more. If you're an ultra runner, a trail or ultra runner curious about the format, or just someone who loves to test your limits, you're in the right place. I'm Jaci Wilson, an ultra marathon and marathon run coach, trail runner, outdoor enthusiast, and backyard ultra expert. On this show, I'll bring you stories, strategies, and conversations with runners, race directors, experts, and more to help you go further, dig deeper, and keep going when everything in you says stop. Thank you so much for joining me for some yards. Let's get started with one more. Welcome back to the One More Hour podcast, an insider's guide to backyard ultras, timed events, and the ultra mindset of one more. Today's guest is someone who everyone should be following. I think he is incredible by posting these little daily reminders that you can keep going no matter what hard season of life you are going through. He's always said that if you did it yesterday, you can do it today. And if you can do it today, you can do it tomorrow. He's ran 14 ultra marathons, of which he's ran Midstate Mile 3 times, Barn Creek Backyard Ultra 2 times. He's ran Mad Backyard Ultra, and many other timed events and fixed distance events. He's also gearing up to run Cocodona this year. It's coming up super fast. And he has an incredible story and is a proponent to faith, fitness, and sobriety, while also relying on discipline to get him through each day while looking towards the ultimate progress. Our guest is Dylan Ledbetter. Thank you, Dylan, for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jaci, and One More Hour podcast guests and listeners. I really appreciate everybody. Yeah, you nailed who I am and what I like to live and breathe. I'm 31 years old. I was in the Army for 8.5 years. I've been running, somewhat most of my life just through sports in the military. Nothing structured, no track background, no cross country, no half marathon events at any point. Kind of just stuff that you had to do to get by. Found ultra running in 2023, which I'm sure we'll get into. I got out of the Army in 2021. I'm an athletics groundskeeper on baseball fields, which I absolutely adore. I work like 6 a.m. to 2:30. I love working in the heat. I love preparing the field and like getting it ready for children to come out there. I just remember stepping onto a field. It's such a nice, crisp field. It's such a good feeling when I was a kid, so I get to provide that on a daily basis. I'm a follower of Christ, like you said. That came to me in 2023 as well. So a lot of life changes in the last 3 years. Been sober about 1.5 years. And Cocodona 250. We're less than 50 days away. So very exciting stuff this year.
Wow, absolutely. And wow, what journey over the past 3 or so years. So you said you've been sober for 1.5 years. You started ultra running in 2023. And I mean, you've ran 14 ultras and you have, 4 or 5 already on ultra sign up for this coming year? That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, we're loaded down this year, and they're kind of like back to back to back. It gets like that sometimes. So as long as the body holds up, we'll be showing up for everything.
So how are you feeling about Cocodona coming up?
I feel really good. I feel really underestimated. I hope, right? I hope that I'm being underestimated. Of course, I'm not a who's who. I don't have, thousands of followers or anything, or a sponsor or anything like that, which I enjoy that. I always fumble with a question in my own mind, if I was to get noticed and become sponsored, if I'd even accept a sponsorship. I just really like doing it for the regular person. I like being a regular person in the way that we talk about a 9-to-5 job. I mean, of course, not normal in the sense of running ultra marathons and things of this nature, but normal to the crowd that we'll have today for the most part. But I like doing a question like, why not us? Why not the regular people? And I really enjoy training towards that, and it's why I get up at 3:30 in the morning, because if you're an elite athlete, they're not doing that. Most of them aren't doing that, is what we'll say, because they don't have to, and I don't blame them. If I didn't have to, I wouldn't either, but I work at 6 a.m., so I have to be up at 3 a.m. But I love grinding on the streets or in the gym when nobody else is awake. I love that feeling. I love going to work and working hard all day long and then still getting the work done after work. I think there's something that is really good at a race like Cocodona, where it's really grueling, really long. You've had to put in the work after work, day after day after day after day, and it's really exciting. So I feel good. I had a build. I ran 100. I deloaded, and now we're building again. So 2 about 8 to 10 week builds for Cocodona. I feel good about it.
Awesome. Awesome. So what are you focused on now leading up to race day?
A lot of trail mileage and a lot of elevation gain. People are saying 20K in a week. It's really hard to get 20K in a week unless you have like the perfect hill, and a lot of time. So I'm like gearing towards like 5 to 15, depending on what I can get, but mainly just hammering down like trail miles. I want 50 to 70% of my mileage per week to be on the trails. Just like working on ankle stability and feet stability and knees and really being able to navigate that when my legs are sore or tired and stuff like that. I think it's really important. I personally can get hyper focused on just like, hey, volume, just numbers. I need 70 miles. I need 80 miles. But if those 80 miles on the road are not as good for me quality wise as 40 trail miles right now, and so that's where I want to be focusing currently.
I love it. And where does strength training fit into this for you? Because I know you're big on strength training.
Yeah, too much probably. And like I can't give up the muscular build is like it gets forced once you get up to like the 70-mile range. Like I can't hold on to it. But I strength train about 5 days a week, 6 days a week. Usually like 2 leg focused days in there. One's kind of heavy, one's more like mobility focused and body weight focused and stuff like that. And then, like I said, running on those legs I think is important. Like be careful because you don't want to hurt yourself. But if you do it the right way, you're really building those joints and that cartilage and stuff like that so that when the race gets really hard, like your muscles still know how to move under that type of soreness.
Right. Yep. So I want to go back to what you said about waking up. You're waking up at 3:30 in the morning. And I oftentimes see you post your Bible or your dog laying on the bed in the morning right away. Do you have a specific routine that you do every single morning?
Well, actually, we read Bible at night. So we read scripture at night.
Oh, that's at night? Oh, yeah, well, I've seen it in the morning.
Yeah. It's like 8 p.m. or so usually, like I'm in bed. But in the morning now, like I've been really intentional, like getting up, drinking a glass of water, usually with like elements, just an electrolyte, something electrolyte based. And then I usually eat something, and then I'm in the gym between 3:30 and 4. In between that time, like I'm just really getting focused for the day, like waking up. I do a little bit of like just like moving your arms and moving your body and like little hops, and there's like a whole routine that I do, but like I don't want to act it out. But it's just like takes like 5 minutes, but it's just like moving your body around, and it really like wakes you up rather than just like a lot of gym goers, they just like scoop of whatever they're taking and then they go, and you don't really fully wake up doing that. If you like can move your body and like be functioning, it'll help, so I do that, making sure you're drinking water and electrolytes like immediately, and then just getting into the gym, warming up, doing some dynamic stretching, and then getting into whatever the lift is for that day.
I just love hearing what people do for routine. I think routine is so important, and I think it helps us a lot in not only our training, but then also on race day too. So speaking of running, so you're in the military for 8.5 years. It's very common to hate running after being in the military, right? So where did running come in? You started ultra running in 2023, but is that when you actually started running, and what kind of role does it play in your journey?
Yeah, and you're spot on with like you're forced to run so much in the military, and goes with sports too. I think if people played sports as long as we're in the military, they would also just like, I'm kind of over it. You get burnt out, people may say, and doing something that you're not specifically passionate about, but you have to do. It's a different thing. People get burnt out at their jobs if they don't love them. They say work a job you love so you don't work a day in your life. And I think running. Once you learn how to run on your own, it's a little different. But yeah, 2021, I get out of the Army and I'm like, I'm never running again. Like I'm good on running. I'm going to go to the gym. I can get cardio in there. Like it's, I don't need to run. I didn't think there was a reason to run. About 2 years later, a little bit less than that, I lose a friend in a motorcycle accident. And he was my roommate for a year. Like a really close friend, my buddy Alex White, he was still in the Army at the time. And so that hit me heavy, and I was drinking a lot at this time to cope and things like that. I come across Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, which if you haven't read it, like I think some people now get turned off by Goggins because it's like too many people know about him. But man, that book is so impactful that it could really help anybody out. And I listened to it on Audible, and I knew who he was, and I see the cussing and the vulgarity of who he is and the in-your-face motivation. And I don't really subscribe to that kind of stuff personally, right? Like I don't do that. But there was an appeal for me personally that like I liked it, you know what I mean? And obviously tons of other people do. But I read the book and there's a challenge in there called the 4x4x48. Anybody unfamiliar, you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So essentially covering 48 miles in 2 days with tons of time to rest and stuff in between. It's just getting up and doing it again and again. I was supposed to do that with my late friend in 2020 while we were in Korea with a group of people. We didn't get to do it because of COVID restrictions with like, you know, PTing with multiple people. So it kind of went by the wayside and then it just never happened. But now I'm reading the book almost a year after my friend has passed and it seemed like a calling, you know, at this point. I didn't have faith in my life at this point either, so I can't say that it was the Holy Spirit. I look back now and would definitely say that was the Holy Spirit, like moving me in the direction I needed to move into to get onto God's path. And I'm like, I'm going to do it for him. You know, like the 1 year's coming up, which is in April. It's like, that gives me it was February, so it gives me about 2 months or so to like train to do this thing. So I go out in February, I start running. I did a little 50 mile in a month challenge, which I did 50 miles in a week just because like I wanted to like really prove to myself that I could do it, which was really hard. And I'd never run more than like 6 miles at a time. So me like averaging 7 miles a day, I was splitting it up like 3 in the morning, like 1 on my lunch break and then like 2 after work or something crazy and like getting it done. So I do that, and then I kind of was getting hooked on the running. Like I was like, this is really doing something for me, like therapeutically, that I didn't know it could, you know, that I was doing it at my own pace, and I was doing it kind of when I felt like it. And that's such a different type of running than like, you have to be up at 6:30, everybody's going to get together, we're all going to go run at this pace. If you don't keep up, you suck. Like that's the whole military version of running, which there's a place for that too. But this running that I was doing became therapeutic, and I was processing like my thoughts and my past and things like that. So I was becoming addicted to the mental side of running way more than I didn't care about getting in better shape. Like it didn't matter to get in better shape. But when I was out there, I was like processing things that I'd never really dealt with personally. So then I was like, well, I need to keep pushing the distance. So half marathon, St. Patrick's Day 2023, that went pretty well. So then I signed up for the rock and roll marathon in Nashville. I run that, and that's where like I learned that like you can't grit through the miles. And I've said this before, it's like, you know, that's a really quick turnaround. There wasn't a marathon buildup, you know. It's just like, okay, if I did, and you can grit through a half marathon if you're in decent shape. You know, I was 28, 29 at the time, so we get through that like fine, no bonking or anything like that. But the marathon hit mile 18, there was an uphill, and it broke me off. And it was like, okay, like, if you think you're going to be able to do this, you're going to have to figure out how to do it the right way, because you don't know what you're doing. Like that was the message of that race. I think I finished 4:02, something like that. Nothing impressive, but nothing like terribly slow either. So then I signed up for Strolling Gym 40 miler, or I was signed up for Strolling Gym 40 miler before the marathon. I learned that I wasn't ready for like that distance, and so I break down to the half marathon at Strolling Gym, which was a great time, and that's where I got the environment of ultra running, because you don't even know it exists, right? Until you get into it. And of course, reading Goggins' book, you know, you learn about Moab 240, but you're like, that's way far out there, like that, whatever. But then when you experience it in person, and how lucky am I to have Laz as like the first ultra, you know, race director that I ever meet. So the kind of lucky in that sense. He's such a character, you know, that really makes you love the sport. And it's so traditional. Like he's literally smoking cigarettes, and you're just like, it's not adding up. Like I thought everybody's an athlete, you know, and there's guys taking fireball shots in the parking lot, and somebody's eating donuts, and you're just like, I don't know what's going on. Like I love it, but I don't know what's going on, you know? But the community was so cool, and that got me kind of hooked. And then the Midstate Mile trailer comes through. The documentary hadn't come out yet, just 1 mile, but I saw the trailer, and then I found out that it was really close to me, about an hour away. And it's like this big hype trailer, Chad Wright, you know, being him, you know, kind of Goggins-esque in a way. And we're 4 weeks out from Midstate. I'm like, I'm going to go for this thing. And so I sign up back when you could sign up 4 weeks prior, because you can't do that anymore. It sells out.
4 weeks prior.
Yeah, it sells out like a week of opening, which was in January, you know, so... So I signed up for that, and start listening to Chad's podcast and stuff, which then turned me to faith. Like it was a revelation for me to hear somebody that was doing the things that I was trying to do and speaking in a way of how this faith thing can really propel my life forward, is me not doing things for me anymore, but doing them for a higher power. And that really spoke to me in a way that I fought for weeks. Like that, because I had been a somewhat pronounced atheist, that I didn't believe, and that this was fairy tales, and that you guys are wasting your time with this kind of Christianity stuff, like it's a cult, and I've said these things like out loud, and so now like my ego is like having to fight with what's right and with what you've said, and who are you going to be? Are you going to be able to let go of who you were and chase this thing that you don't know if it's actually going to help you, but something is telling you that it is? And it took me weeks to like finally just like hit my knees in my bedroom and just profess my life to Jesus Christ, right? And what an incredible moment, but what's happened from then has been most incredible. Anyways, so we get into Midstate, we watch the documentary. They had the premiere the night before there down at the course, and I go out there and I run 50 miles on a very, very tough course, and that was my first ultra. So that wow. Kind of bridges the gap there from getting out of the Army, swearing off running, to then finding faith and running an ultramarathon.
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely. So you ran your half. You were already signed up for Strolling Gym 40 miler before you did the marathon?
Correct.
Is that correct? So what made you want to sign up for a 40 miler after already doing a half?
Well, I think that I hate to say the half was easy, but I ran at like an 8 flat pace, like somewhere around there with a month and some change in training. Like it seemed like I could have done more, especially if we slowed the pace down, which I was looking at results and things like this. Like, of course, like I'm not going to run it like Harvey Lewis, like we're not doing those kinds of things, but like I can, slow it down to maybe a 10-minute pace or something and complete 40 miles, and that would be really neat, And so that's kind of where I don't remember how I came across the Strolling Gym, because then I was watching like documentaries on it, which are few and far between, and it's like I watched some old-timey one that I swear was filmed in like the 1970s, and it's just rolling pictures with like a guy talking in the background, but I was intrigued by it, I was like, this is one of the oldest ultramarathons in the country, and it's not far away either. It's like 2 hours away from me. And then, you start finding out about Laz, and you're getting more intrigued with what he is and things like that. But yeah, that's I was like, I can do it. Then run the marathon, and I'm like, okay, well, we gotta check where we're at.
Yeah. So Midstate Mile, tell us more about that race, because I think it's a last person standing format, but I don't think everyone really quite understands the course itself and how it's set up.
Yeah, very unique, and Midstate is my home race, right? It was my first ultra marathon. I've run it every year since. It's an hour away from me. Becca, I'm forgetting Becca's last name right now. That's crazy. But Becca and John are my friends, and I love them to death. But yeah, it's a 1.1 mile loop, roughly, with 350 feet of elevation gain and descent in the loop. It's in a figure 8 pattern, so you'll kind of run out flat, and then you'll climb a big hill, then you'll come flat across, then down a big hill, and then up another hill, across and down a smaller hill, and then you're done. You have to do this every 20 minutes. So 20 minutes for a little bit over a mile sounds really attainable, but with 350 feet of elevation gain and descent, it's if you're running it like fast, you're running 15-minute miles. So your time to turnover is somewhere between 1 second, which is a 1959, and whatever you finish in. 14 minutes is 6 minutes. My goal time is 17 to 30-minute loops per loop. That gives me 2 minutes or so to sit, eat, cool, drink, go again. You start every 20 minutes. Again, you can't start late. You can't finish late. Just like a regular backyard in that sense. It's just 20 minutes and 1 mile instead of, what we're used to, the 4.1 with 1 hour. Every 12 hours, you get what's called an intermission. So at the 12-hour mark, you get to take a break for essentially 20 minutes, which is the only time you'll be able to rest during this race. Also, that's where you can introduce poles. So there's no poles allowed on this course. I know like the elevation's crazy. They don't allow them for the first 12 hours, mainly because of there's so many people like together. You don't want to risk injury. I also think it's just a way that the race isn't going to be like super long, at least not yet, considering like it's 12 hours of climbing 350 per loop, you know, so you're working on 36 miles, you know, you're at 10,000 feet a gain plus within the first 12 hours. So no headphones allowed also at the race, no headphones, so you must talk to everybody, and that's why it becomes such a close community, all the mid-stadians. But that's essentially the course and the format, if that all makes sense.
Yeah. So a couple questions about that. Was your approach the first time you ran it to come in at that same time frame, or were you starting out faster in the beginning?
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. So, you know, and even, you know, watching the documentary, like you get a little bit of insight, but you don't, I mean, I only got to watch it once. The premiere was the night before. So like take what you can. But, you know, I was coming in all sorts of different times, you know, 16 and then 18 and then, you know, all over the place trying to figure out where that sweet spot was of effort and time needed to eat and drink. I didn't have a crew my first year, so just me, which most people don't. You know, it's become a crewable race for me, and I think if you want to do well, you will need a crew. But also the people will help you out. I mean, there's guys that have gotten deep into the race with no crew, and then eventually like other runners become their crew, which is really cool to see. And so I had like an ice chest with like Hoist bottles, because that's what like I knew like Chad was drinking, and then Uncrustables because I didn't know what else like you were supposed to eat or could eat to get like the carbs that people were saying. I'm like, I need carbs, protein, and sugar, and I'm like, dude, an Uncrustable is so perfect. Although way too heavy in the carb department, and I've told like I ate one Uncrustable every hour on the hour, and that was my fuel. Like that was it. And some like fruit from the table that they had over there. And I didn't have a bowel movement for 15 hours. So like this is obviously an issue, right? Like we're carrying around 15 Uncrustables, like, which eventually I don't know if effort took me out or the extra weight of Uncrustables. I don't know. Like I had to have had 4 or 5 pounds of Uncrustables though. And so that was the fueling and the pace strategy. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was really exciting. And like, it's also fun to run a race where nobody knows who you are and there's no expectations. And you kind of, to make it to the intermission is a big deal at Midstate. I think that I rode a write-up last year, and more than 50% of the field was gone before the 12-hour mark, you know? So to even make it there, you know, I was really excited. You know, you think you're doing pretty good at this stuff for the first time. So people are kind of getting behind you a little bit. And I think I like top 20. So you were getting down where people kind of knew who was left and who was who. So it was really fun, but I had no idea what I was doing. Like straight up, no idea.
Do you feel like I have my answer in my head, but I want your opinion. Do you feel like Midstate Mile is harder than the backyard itself?
Oh, it's different, you know, it's so different. You almost know, like, it depends on which backyard you're going to, but you almost know that Midstate's going to be shorter than most backyards, especially like a silver ticket event or something like that. It's more effort per loop for sure, but also it's more aid stations per hour. So like you're almost able to eat like more efficiently if you figure out how to do it. Like not one Uncrustable an hour, don't do that. But like I nailed down a nutrition like tactic for Midstate in my third year that was really great. You also at Midstate, because it's so close, like you don't have to take anything on the loop if you don't want to. You're not going to need even water or anything like that, where if you get deep into, you know, a traditional backyard, you may want to start carrying some stuff with you if you're starting to kind of spiral into like that 55, 57 minute time frame. That's not going to be necessary. Also at Midstate, you're the walking's forced, right? Where like you're going to walk uphill. There's no option there. Where a lot of traditional backyards are pretty flat, and you're going to have to find your spots where you're going to start to walk and things like that. Where a lot of people fail at traditional backyards is running too fast because, you know, they want to keep a certain pace for the entire loop, although you need to learn how to do it a certain way. It's really tactical. And the 4.167 is I think it's harder in that sense than Midstate. It's longer, like a longer loop or out and back makes it a little tougher to figure out exactly what you're going to do.
Yeah, yeah. So how are you training for Midstate specifically?
Well, I like to go out there a couple times a year. Like I'm in like Becca's Trail Club, so she'll invite people down there on the weekends to like help with trail maintenance, and then also you can just get some loops out there. So I've been down there a couple times, but a lot of trail miles, a lot of climbing. Like I'll get on the Stairmaster a lot, but really heat training as well. But before last year, like I hadn't really trained trails or anything or elevation or anything like that. I just kind of like that was my race. I'm going to go out there and just go as hard as I can. But I would tell everybody to train trails and train elevation and heat.
Okay. Yeah. So Midstate, then you ran a 40-hour race, you ran a 24-hour race. You did run Strolling Gym after that, the 40-miler. And then you show up again to Midstate. Like, what did you learn over that year? And what did you take into Midstate again the second time?
Yeah, a lot happened in there. And one thing that happened is like a month after Midstate, I got invited to that 24-hour timed loop you're talking about, 1 mile loop, as many as you can. And it was just an hour away from me too, down in Pegram, Tennessee, run by John Harden, great guy. And I, for some reason, thought that I could run 100 miles in 24 hours. And I thought this was a goal that was going to be really far out there, maybe a couple years, because I see how it's a big deal, to run 100 miles in less than 24 hours. Even within the ultra running community, you have people that try to do this for years and years and years, and they just kind of almost never get there, or they finally do, and it's an incredible feat, and it really is. And so I went out there and I just employed this method, I employed a Midstate method. I'm going to run either 2 miles or 1 mile. Then I'm going to sit down, eat, drink, and then do another loop or two. And that was it. And I've told the story a few times, but 40 miles in, my legs were really sore. And I didn't really understand why, because I'd done 50 miles on a crazy elevation course. And but they hurt, and I was like, this isn't making sense. And this is where I believe the Holy Spirit spoke to me and told me, hey, like, everything's hurting right now, but it's going to be okay. You're running currently, and you're going to be able to keep running. Just keep doing it. Just be okay where you're at. And people call that now the steady state, or people have different names for it. I'd never heard of this before, that like you're going to hit this pain threshold and you're kind of just going to ride that out for a really long time, and it's just going to kind of be up to your mind to hold on to that thing as long as you can. And that'll be learned too. You build these chambers, in my opinion, a physical, mental, and spiritual chamber that you can work on through your training and your races. And like I said, and that's a big deal, the 40 miles, because of the biblical, number 40 and what it means, the 40 days and nights of rain, with Noah's Ark, 40 years in the forest with Moses and things like this. And then your 41, is the day the light shined through. And what that was my next loop, is getting through 41 was like the light. Something had spoken to me. I can no longer denounce that faith is real, because something spoke to me that I didn't have any reason for me to gain this knowledge without it being spiritual. And I got really lucky out there, and I ran a good race. My parents helped crew me, and I did 104 miles in 24 hours. I took second place overall, first place male. And this lady, Jill Dennis, who's a beast down in Nashville, she did like 123 miles. She's a monster.
Oh my gosh.
And she's the one that invited me and like told me about the race. And so and this was kind of a problem in a sense too, because we're talking about started running in February, first half marathon March 17th. Now it's July roughly 17th, and I just ran 100 miles in 24 hours, and I won. So like, as much as I was being grounded by my faith, my ego was like through the roof. It's like, how good can we be at this stuff? And because nothing on paper says that I should have been able to do that, and nobody would have recommended that I go out there and even attempt to do something like that with my knowledge. And so we get through that, and then Tennessee Mile comes, and it like breaks me off, and I understand that we're brought back down to earth, just like the marathon. I went out there looking for a course record, and I come out at course record pace, and it was way too fast for me and my training level, and I almost quit the race, and John talked me into staying and getting through the entire 40 hours, which is really purposeful and really needed to happen. But once again, we came back down to ground zero and understood that, you have to train to do some of these things. Like, you got a gift here, but that's what it was, Dylan. Like, learn on it the right way. And so that's where we were December 2023. And then, moving into 2024, we run Midstate again and have a terrible performance, if you want to get into that one as well.
So I guess we can touch on it. Like, what went wrong? Like, where did the race take a turn where you're like, this isn't what I expected or wanted? Well,
a little bit of it was the heat. A little bit, the most of it was that I got borderline blackout drunk the weekend before. Like, I had no respect for ultra running is what I'd like to say at this point, because I was getting, like I said, won this race a race last year, first place male, and I've done all these things while drinking, and so I didn't think that that it was hindering me that bad, and so you keep like pushing that threshold and pushing it, and I like literally a week before the race, the amount of alcohol I consumed, to think that wasn't going to insanely affect me just shows like how delusional I was and disproportionate to like my training and what it means to be healthy and hydrate and things of this nature. And so as much as, it was the hottest weekend we'd had up until that point, if I don't, act in the way that I did the week before, I think that at least you get, 20 more miles or something different. But I was not in shape, and that was only because of my own ignorance.
So tell us a little bit more about your journey since then, since that weekend, and how that's kind of shaped your last year and a half or so.
Yeah, and this is that race was my realization that like something had to change if I wanted to keep doing this thing and do it well, and also be the person that I was saying I was, right? Because like we see my posts now, and I'm happy to post what I post now because I know that I'm living and practicing them, right? Where beforehand I may have been posting things that I believed but wasn't practicing, and this happens a lot, and it's really easy to do. Like I'm intelligent enough to know, what can get clicks or what people like to see or what needs to be said or what needs to be done even for me. But I didn't have the intestinal fortitude to like dig deep enough and actually apply the things that I was saying myself, And so that race, doing what it did to me and understanding, a performance worse than last year after I have over a year of ultra running experience is inexcusable, minus injury, it's inexcusable. But I knew it was an injury. I knew exactly what it was. And it took me about 2 months after that to really like sit down with myself and say that I needed to try to get rid of this alcohol thing, and just for the purpose of knowing if it could be better. So I was like, I'm gonna do 60 days, and the reason it was 60 days is because it was August 25th, and 60 days after that is my birthday. So it's like, okay, we could like my head, like I'm working in the right direction, but we're not fully there yet. We're not fully there. We're working in that direction, but not there. And I got 30 days in to being completely sober, and I just had no reason to drink again. Like I couldn't find one, like in my logical mind, which I'm a crazy thinker. Like I never stop thinking. People talk about when they run, they can shut off their mind. Like my mind does not do that. Like I can forget half a podcast because like I'm in my mind, like not always thinking about negative things. Some of it's good, profound stuff, or preparing for something, or, what's going on at the next day. But it will roll, it is constantly like doing things. And, in my mind, I couldn't logically understand why I would ever drink again. Like I could not justify it. And when I come to a point where I can't find purpose or justification in something, I'll just give it up. Like I legitimately will give it up. And And I was at a point where it was either you give up ultra running because you're not going to be good at it because you want to live a different lifestyle that's not conducive to being good at it, or you're going to have to give up this thing and then you're going to have to go chase ultra running and try to be the best you can possibly be at it. And that was the crossroad. And I figured that out 30 days in, and the choice was obvious. Like, I wanted to be the best I could possibly be at this thing. So since then, we haven't had a drink, and there's no reason to. I can't find a reason to. So until that day comes, which I pray it never does, I don't ever want to go back into that space. And I'm not demonizing alcohol either. I think some people can have healthy relationships with it. I'm not one of those people. I have an addictive family tree. I'm an addict myself in the way that now I choose the healthy things, right? Like, I love to run. I'm addicted to running. I'm addicted to chasing my goals. Like, addicts, we will always be addicted to something. Like, this is something I preach to people that come to me, like, wanting to learn about my sobriety and stuff. Like, you're just going to be an addict, and it's okay. Like, you don't have to sit here and call yourself an addict. It doesn't have to be a bad word or anything like that. It doesn't have to have a negative connotation. You just have to choose the right thing to be addicted to, and I don't care what it is. Like, be a poet, write books. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Mine's ultra running. Like, I want to be addicted to this thing and my faith and my fitness, and so it's choosing what you're addicted to, and that's when I made that decision. And then November comes and we run Barn Creek, and that's where once again I believe the Lord really gave me a gift. We can get into it, of course.
Yeah. First of all, before we do that, I want to ask you a question about the crossroads that you came to. I think it's really fascinating how your mind works and how you were able to just say, I can't see any reason why I would continue down the path of alcohol over ultra running. Not everyone's brain works like that. So what advice do you have for someone who is in a similar position and they're trying to reason themselves through, like, yes, I see, like, clearly there's, in my situation, alcohol does not serve a place. But if someone's brain does not think like yours, and it seems like you were able to draw that line in the sand, how do they get to that point?
Yeah, there's a few different methods, and mine all works in my head, and really removing myself from me, if that makes sense, and your mind has to be in a healthy spot to do this too. Like, you have to be really vulnerable with you and be able to, like, look in a mirror and be like, am I proud of who that person is, right? And whether that's the new person or the old person, like, you have to look at both of them, and it's like, which one do I want to be? And then it's like, okay, my two things that I was at a crossroads with was alcohol and ultra running. So now it's like pros and cons lists for both of them, right? Like, what has alcohol given me? And then that answer is not nothing, right? Because you probably gained great friendships, possibly business ventures through that types of things, right? Fun, right? I mean, people say fun. I think it's perceived fun, right? It's short-term fun for long-term opposite of fun. But and then what has ultra running given me, or what is running itself, or fitness itself, or faith itself, whatever your thing is that you think may be better,
Yeah.
And then you have to weigh that out. And I think that almost anybody would understand that alcohol will never outweigh the healthy things that you do for yourself. Like, as long as you're doing the healthy things correctly, and not overexerting or overwhelming yourself with certain things. But that's the advice that I would give, is look at, like, what did this thing do to me positively and negatively, and then what is the new thing doing for me positively and negatively. And what's crazy about that is you have way more data on the old thing, right? So, like, you should be able to, and if you come at it with the wrong mind, you could probably justify that this thing gives me, so much positive stuff. But as soon as you start thinking about the negatives, for some, like, they start racking up, and you start remembering things that you didn't remember before, you know? And like, for me, like, even when I was a kid, and my mom, I watched her overdose, like, in our kitchen, and had to call 911, like, as a child. And, like, that stuff's coming back. Like, alcohol did that. You know what I mean? Like she was drinking, which then led to pill abuse, which then, like that could be me. Like, this is my family. Like, I came from that person, Do I want to end up like that? like,
Right.
because it's there, the math is there for it to logically happen, and do I have a grasp? And then when you start thinking about the times that you didn't have a grasp on alcohol, which for me was multiple times, but even one time is too many times where you don't have control of your own life, and that's what scared me with alcohol too, is I was starting to realize that, like, it had control over, to celebrate, right, to feel joy, to feel happy, and then also to feel sad, to feel angry, right, to forget. Like, it was doing all of that for me rather than me being able to control that at all. So then I was scared of it, right, and still am, right, and I'm scared of
Yeah.
it for other people now, like, who don't have the healthy relationship, because, like, you don't know until you are able to pull back, like I was so blessed to be able to do, and understand what it had done to me and what it had controlled in my life. And then I was also lucky to have a new alternative that I could immediately go to and fill the void where, like, alcohol helped me not be anxious. Now the run, I don't feel like it makes me not feel anxious, right? When I'm angry, I used to drink. Now I can run or I can lift, right? Like, it was like I could replace everything. The friendships, right? I lost a ton of my friends on the alcohol side of things, almost all of them,
Yep.
to be honest. And now I have new friends, that are amazing and uplifting. Like, I was able to also understand that, like, all this stuff that I was using alcohol for, I can replace it with a good thing. And, like, that was really exciting. And I guess, and I'm really, really lucky and blessed that, like, the Lord was able to put these things on my mind too, because without it, like, I don't know how I don't go back if I don't understand this and take the step back. So I hope that answered the question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love the visualization of the T chart. I love the just breaking it down on all of these things and what you can replace it with on the other side of with ultra running. I absolutely love that. And I hope that helps someone that is listening as well.
Yeah, me too.
So let's dive into Barn Creek. I want to hear more about it.
Yeah, so Barn Creek, it's over outside of Knoxville, essentially. It's a newer backyard. I think that they just had their third or fourth year, this last one I ran. I think I was in the second one, I think. And it's about half trail, half road, which I really like, out and back. So you kind of start, you run a little bit of gravel road and then down onto a trail. You run that for a little bit of elevation gain and loss, but nothing really pronounced. And then you get onto this road, you run it out to a lollipop turnaround, and you come back. So I didn't know much about the race. This was my first traditional backyard that I'd ever ran in November 2024. I knew the people of, like, East Coast Adventures, like David Compton's and Matt Williams, and those guys who, East Coast Adventures, they now run the race and shop the long run over there. I didn't really know anybody, though. My friend Daniel Castro was the only person I knew there, and we linked in, and I didn't really know what pace to run, but I kind of knew a last man standing format. Like, there's some key things, and a lot of that is, like, finding a time to come in and being on that time, plus or minus 1 minute for me for a 1 hour backyard, plus or minus 30 seconds for Midstate, and just sit there all day long, and so you're just, like, finding that thing, which usually takes a few hours, new course, and sometimes you're jibber jabbering a little bit, so you might keep up with somebody in the beginning a little bit longer, and but never overexerting, like never running anywhere close to the front of the pack. Like, if I break 48 minutes, I know that we're way too fast, like stuff like that, like, because you just know, like, and my time is 50 minutes, and I tell everybody, if it's their first backyard and they look for my advice, I tell them, between 48 and 52, I'm a 50-minute guy. That's where I'll be. Between 49 and 51 gives me plenty of time to sit down. It gives me plenty of time to change shoes and socks if I need to do headlamp stuff, to use the restroom, to eat. I can do all of it, in that, 8.5, 9 minutes.
Yep.
So about 4 hours in, me and Daniel are like, we're both running 50-minute loops. And so we're like, we're just going to stick together. We know each other. Like, we ended up having great conversations, and we're having a good time. And the funny thing about the backyard is, if you stick in long enough, the people that ran in the front eventually make their way back to you,
Yeah.
And I didn't really know this because I hadn't run one before. And also, there's a lot of talk in the beginning about how many miles is everybody going to run, like, what's your goal and what are we going to do today. And a couple of my buddies were like, well, they're my buddies now, but they're like, oh, we're going to run 150 miles. And I'm like, wow, like, that'd be really cool, and, like, I'm just hoping for 100 mostly, and kind of trying to feel out this new format that I didn't know anything about. But I'm also kind of putting it in my back pocket, like these guys think they're saying things like this that's a little bit psychological, at least in my opinion. Like I'm back pocketing it as that. Like they're trying to maybe deter some of the other people, from running as far as they can, supposedly. And I'm like, I'm just going to stick at 50-minute loops, And so we're doing that for a really long time. And we're having a lot of fun. And all these people are coming back to us that were running, 45s and stuff like that. And we're kind of keeping them in it, but they're struggling because like they wouldn't be there if they weren't struggling. And I think at one point, this is a big piece of the backyard, is like be encouraging to everybody, like be really outgoing and try to have as many conversations as you can and like laugh and love and stuff, because me and Daniel were like cracking jokes as soon as people got back to us. Like we're having fun with them in a way that like legitimately, like I want to know who you are and like let's have some fun. And like we're joking about somebody going out on a loop because like they couldn't stop using the bathroom, like he was off in the woods, and that actually happened, and like but like we were probably 60-70 miles in and there wasn't that many people left, and people would come back to us and I could tell that we were so high spirited that it was breaking people's spirits because we were so high spirited. Like not like they were trying to stay with us, but I could tell like in their minds they're like, these guys are way too fresh, like we seemed unbeatable based only off of the way that we were, like our body language and just like the fun that we were having. Like I'm sure Daniel and I were hurting physically more than we were portraying outwardly, but part of the backyard is like doing your best to hold off, like giving those, the chinks in your armor, like showing, that the weaknesses, and a lot of that can be worked through just by like helping somebody else or just laughing and like telling stories and things like that. And that's what we were doing. And I think that it was mentally messing other people up because they were like, I don't know how these guys are having fun 85 miles in, like I'm redlining, running 50-minute loops. These guys have never wavered, they've hit the same loop every single time. Like I don't understand, And so if I was to encourage anybody, it's like, just do that, like have fun and find your pace, find a buddy, and latch on and have a good time. Also, of course, like I tell everybody, if you're new to backyards, which probably nobody here is, but is finding...
There's actually a lot of new listeners. There's actually a lot of new ones.
Well, good. Take this one then.
So it'll be very helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, is creating waypoints on the course that is the time to be there, right? And it doesn't matter what your mileages are, because like you can shut your mileages off and just run hour by hour. It does not matter what mile you're at. Like I understand a lot of people use the backyard to PR on mileage and stuff like that. I almost promise you'd go farther if you just took it hour by hour and never focused on the mileage. But setting up like, big oak tree with pink ribbon is 10:23, and in an out and back, that means like I find my time for that same marker on the way back. On the way back, it's 40 whatever, And then, because that's really going to help you at night when there's not a lot to focus on and there's nothing to really look at, but it's like, I just need to get to Big Oak Tree at 10 whatever, and then I need to get it to Small Bridge at 1570 or 1517, and it's like just having those waypoints, and I probably usually use somewhere between 8 and 12 of them. I think something like that on a 4-mile loop. Midstate, I think I have 6 or 8 of them on a 1-mile loop. And it's just like finding that, and then that's all you really need to focus on. It's almost like in a big race, like, we'll do Cocodonas, like just getting aid station to aid station. Like how far is the next aid station? It's just 7.2. Okay, let's focus for 7.2. And this is the same, like Big Oak Tree at this time. And then like, okay, I'm 13 seconds behind the time I need to be there, like that's okay. But if you want to speed up, like you know your flat area and maybe you walked it, but now you just have to run a little bit of it. Like let's get back to that space by the next 2 waypoints, And it's really just keeping yourself in that mindset, because as soon as you start wavering off of whatever your time is, like mine's 50 minutes. If I was to do a loop at 53, 30, I would know that something's wrong, and then your mind starts to unravel a little more than your body does, because you can't comprehend getting faster, and that you're hurting.
Yep. No, I absolutely love that tip. I think that's genius.
Yeah, I love it. And so anyways, Daniel and I continue to run, and we get down to, it was just, I think 3 of us, me, Daniel, and Brandon. And Brandon had ran 100 miles there before. So I was really hopeful at this point. When you're down to 3 and we were like 80 something miles in, like I was feeling pretty good, and I'm like, I really want to get to 100, and Daniel was feeling good too. So he's like, we're okay. But Brandon was like not doing well. Like he was, verbally talking about his hip not doing well. Like he kind of like had a bad gait. And, so I was pretty worried. And then we get to 100. Brandon, he's done. And he's been saying that for like 3 loops now. He's like, I'm quitting at 100. I'm quitting at 100. I'm like, all right, dude, like, let's just get there. And as much as I wanted the race to continue, like, you also want it to end, because in the same way, like, even 100 miles in and, for somebody that's really good at this kind of stuff, that may seem, very quick and like, early in the race and stuff. But if you're just starting backyards and like maybe going to smaller ones or trying to start one of your own, to get the race to 100 miles is incredible, and it's a sub 2400 and it's really cool. So I don't want to like discredit 100 miles in any form or fashion. And so we get there, and then Daniel like is falling behind on the 100-mile loop, and I'm like, oh no, like this is this is like not good, because I was starting to come out of the gate hot. Like I was kind of pulling a Harvey Lewis. Like I wanted to show some strength, so for about 2 or 3 loops, I wasn't running with Daniel anymore, because he was kind of death spiraling into like the 55s and such. And so then I was just coming out hot around probably 21 hours in or something like that. Just, I can run good still. Let's get ahead of everybody. I don't want them to know where I am. I don't want them to see me. I want them to feel like I'm far away from them, not just physically, but like it's like a mental gap too, right? Yeah. Like, what does Sally McRae say? Pass, gap, bury, right? Yep. Yeah. So I was like, and this is an out and back, so you're never going to like, I'm going to see him again, but the intention was still the same, that like, I don't want you to even think you're close to me, physically or mentally. And so I was doing that. Daniel doesn't complete that loop, so then I won with 104 miles and 25 yards in my very first backyard.
That's awesome. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was fun.
When it was the 3 of you left, you mentioned you want that both of the other guys to continue going so that you can go further, but at the same time you also want them to be done so that then you can run your last lap or finish your last one and be done. Where does that kind of mindset shift happen? Because I've talked to a few people recently that as soon as they start thinking about other people, then that's where they mentally falter. So how do you keep that rock solid mindset of focusing on your race without letting others hinder what you're actually doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think this is like the reason I took 3rd at Midstate this last year in June, instead of doing better, because the people in front of me were wavering, and I started thinking about them, like, and when they were going to just be done, rather than like just continuing to do 1730 loops, But in the backyard, the Barn Creek race, I felt so different because I felt so strong, right? Like I knew that they were struggling because they were showing it physically, they were expressing it verbally, and I knew like I had a lot left. So at this point, like I almost knew it wasn't going to be detrimental to focus on them mentally, because unless like for some reason something happens that like hasn't happened for 100 miles so far, I'm really strong right now. And so it kind of depends on where you're at. If you're in a place of hurts, like really bad, and you're also struggling, I would say just do not focus on anything but completing the loop at your exact time. Like, act like there's nobody else out there, right? But if you're strong enough, like, I think that you can shift and like really play a little bit of mind games if you want, and focus on where the other runners are. And when you pass them, take a good look at their gait, give them a high five, of course. But stuff like, but really, it depends on where you're at. In that moment at Barn Creek, I knew that I was going to win. Like, not in an egotistical way, but based on their physical, place and then mine. Like I just knew I had it that day, and and they had a great day, but they were Brandon said he was going to quit for 5 hours, and so you can only do that for so long. And it wasn't, like some people, well, maybe he was messing with you. It's like I looked at him and, well, he wasn't messing with me, and then, Daniel went 53, 55, 57. Like everybody knows what that means, the death spiral, right? Like you're going down. It's just a matter of time. And I'm staying at 50, so I would just tell people, if you're struggling, do not focus on anybody else, but if you're in a good place, you can play a little bit of games.
Yeah, that's a really good point. How was your nutrition? Because I know when you first started with Midstate, Uncrustables did not sit very well. So how did you feel when you were at Barn Creek?
Yeah, I felt good. I actually got nutrition advice along the way from this lady, Sarah Harris, who's a nutritionist, and she works at a university. And so I was eating like steak quesadillas, and she's like, Dylan, too much protein. She's like, you're not going to be able to process that. You know what I mean? Like you're eating literally like steak and cheese. Like you're not, like those are things that are hard to digest. And this was early. This is like 10 miles in, And I'm like, okay, like what do you think? And she had like naked juice, and she's like, you need to like use a little bit more like drink stuff or stuff that that's easier for your body to digest. Oatmeals, which I had oatmeals, which was good. But things that like you're getting your carbs, maybe a little bit of protein, you don't need a lot, and then a little bit of sugar, and you can pretty much go a long way. I was hitting that 40 to 60 carb range, and just kind of holding out on that. A lot of fruits. I'm a big fruit guy. I like to eat fruit, and I'll still eat Uncrustables, but we just won't eat them all at once. Like you could use it for a little while. Be patient with that, and then I started using some gels and things like that too. That's easy to process and digest. So it was like learning that like it's not just needing 40 to 60 carbs, it's how you get those carbs, and then how to ensure that they digest correctly so that like your body can do what it's supposed to do. Like we're talking about running for 20 hours, 24 hours, whatever it's going to be. Like at some point you're going to have to let your body do what it's supposed to naturally do, because if you don't, like you'll implode essentially.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So if you're using fruit, are you training with that during your long runs, during some of your weekday runs? No, not at all?
Not at all, no.
It just sits well with you?
Yeah, it does. When I race, and I'll eat fruit probably, something like Midstate, I'll probably eat fruit almost every hour. At least, and I'm not eating a lot, right? Like a couple pieces of pineapple and a couple grapes, or, something like that. I'm not going crazy on it, but it's never sat poorly with me at all. Yeah.
That's awesome. Because I was following Stormy Hild when he was running Queenie. And I saw he had this huge bowl of fruit, and it's like, well, I love fruits, and I've used grapes and watermelon and cantaloupe during backyards, but I haven't used it a ton. So it just got me to thinking about my next backyard. Should I be trying to incorporate it more during training, or is it just gonna sit well? Because it's always sat well with me. So it's just
you have to
interesting.
think like it's super water based anyways, right?
Yeah.
Most fruits, so like it's gonna process pretty easily no matter what. But I'm like watermelon, pineapple, grapes, cantaloupe. Like I've never had an issue with any of that stuff at all. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm a huge oatmeal guy too, and that's like been kind of a new thing for me. But oatmeal's been incredible for racing. And like at Midstate, I was doing 20-minute loops. So every hour, like it was like I broke it up into 3. So the first loop I would do a gel. The second loop I would do like a Stinger waffle or something with a little bit of carbs and fruit. And then the third loop I would do something that was like a hard food, like an oatmeal or like a avocado wrap or something like that, or even like a cheese quesadilla. And then I was recycling back down to the gel. And this is where like that really allowed my body to like digest correctly. I had like this system, which I'll use again. It's just in the backyard, it's obviously different unless you're going to take this stuff out there on the loop with you, which, I'm not a guy who does it. I don't take anything with me on the loops. But if you want to, you get gels out there and then come back and do a hard food, and it would probably work like just as well.
Yeah, that timing is really important. And it's nice that it works really well for Midstate because it's every 20 minutes.
Yep, the aid station is just a mile away.
Yeah, that is awesome. So, are there any other like highlights that you or light bulb moments that really stand out from the other last man standing or even, I don't know, the fixed time events that you've done?
Um, Barn Creek's a huge one just because like it's where my mindset changed as well from being like a hard-nosed cutthroat competitor, like showing up and like with a I'm the best, I want to crush everybody, which is like a Goggins or a Chad Wright mindset. And like those are
Yeah.
guys that I really love and look up to and have truly changed my life, both of those men. And but that style, what I figured out is it's not me. Like and that's something too, is you have to learn who you are as a runner and who you are as a competitor and what works for you. And that was the first race where like I said, my friend Sarah Harris is like giving me nutritional advice like while we're out there, right? Early on. And then like this guy Dusty, I was talking about shoe changing and he's like, well, Dylan, I change my shoes every 8 hours because I feel like they get compression, you know, and then like if I go to another pair, even if it's the same type of shoe, I'm getting a new shoe with more bounce and it feels more comfortable. And he's like, it could just be placebo. I implemented that tip at the same race in that race for the first time, you know? And so like I was learning that like I want to be somebody like a Dusty or a Sarah that helps prolong somebody's race, because these people undoubtedly helped me win that race possibly, right? Like they're little and they were just willing to do that because they're good competitors, what I call a good competitor. They want to do their best, right? And they also may want to win, but they're going to also give you advice to help you do your best. And that's that's where I wanted to be. And that race showed me that like this is what you could be, you know, and maybe could help you. And then like, so that's when people were coming back to Daniel and I, we were holding them in the race as long as we possibly could, you know, like what's your PR? Let's get there. Right. And then once we get past there, it's like, hey, everything's gravy. Let's get some more of it, you know, one more, like, and it's just like, that's where I became a new type of competitor, was in that race. And I think in the backyard, it's a great space to do it because you restart together every loop. You're out there together every loop. And you're not running for speed, so it's not like you're going to leave anybody in the dust, you know, like you're coming back to the same place. And so that's something that the backyard and the fixed time loops like really can give you, is a sense of like, what type of runner are you going to be? Like what works best for you? And I learned that out there.
I love that. It's one of my favorite things to tell, you know, when you show up to race day and you hear some runners talking about, oh, this is my first backyard, I don't really know what I'm doing. I tell those people, like, talk to the people who have ran this race before or the similar formats and just, like, listen to what they do and what's worked for them and what hasn't, because you can learn so much. And everyone is out there to help everyone else, because it's the entire point of the race, right? Like, to continue going as far as we can together. And I just love that you had that switch in mindset and how you wanted to show up, and you realized that that was the Goggins approach, the Chad Wright approach was not you. And you can still take things that you've learned from them and they've helped you so much in your journey, but really fine tuning, like, how do I actually want to show up during race day? That's incredible.
Yeah, finding your own runner personality and individuality is really important, because like we consume so much of everybody else, all the top people, and we want to be like them, right? And like that definitely, and you should, you know, I want to be able to run like Mark Dowdle or like Harvey or like Phil Gore, right? Like but I may not be able to, like Harvey runs 55-minute loops. I don't know how I would survive at 55-minute loops, you know? Like I feel like I'd be rushed and anxious with that short amount of time, you know? But I love what he does and how encouraging he is, and like you're saying, you get to, that's what's so great about ultra running too. And like even the good thing about social media is you can pick things from everybody that you really like and then make them you and put your own little spin on that. And now you get to be that person for somebody someday, even if it's at the lowest level, you know, that, like I said, it's just people like Sarah and Dusty in that race that nobody knows unless you know them, right? And but like to me, they're so important to who I've become as an ultra runner, you know? And so being that person for other people is like really exciting too, you know, really helping people out. Like it brings me joy, and I believe it's part of my purpose, you know? So I was, like I said, thankful to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're thinking about your goals going into a race, Like, what are you thinking about? Are you setting some outcome goals? Are you thinking about process goals the entire time? Like, what's your approach to goal setting?
Yeah, I try to tell people never to set mileage goals, but the reality is that it's impossible not to, right? And that's something too, like, and I told somebody this the other day, like, don't set mileage goals. But, like, let's be real, like, you're going to anyways, you know? But it's just, don't stop at those goals, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, it's not a stop sign, it's not a yield, right? It's just like, okay, it happened, now we're on to the next one. And it's almost
Yeah.
like you have to set enough goals out there that they become, one of them's unattainable, right? Like, one of them has to almost be unattainable. And maybe you even get past that one, you know, maybe it's 500 yards in the backyard or 500 miles in the backyard, and that's going to get surpassed someday, right? And it's going to seem like, wow, this is an amazing surprise. And that's important too, is like to have goals that are so lofty that you get to surprise yourself, you know, and that's fun. But like I said, goal-oriented, I have them. Of course, I have an A, B, and C. I've got more than that. Like I said, the mind runs. So I've got, you know, you get to one point, you know, I'll find another one, you know, I promise. Even if I didn't have it before the race, I can find a new one. And, but really coming into the race now, I'm just really grateful to even toe the line. Like, and gratitude is so massive in my approach to running now. Like, something like Cocodona, 3 years ago, I would never thought that I would. Now I'm on ultra sign up, like Dylan, my name, like that is unbelievable to me right now, and we're 49 days out, right? Like, I'm gonna go stand next to Courtney DeWalter and David Goggins and Killian Korth and Michael McKnight. Like, why, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
and that's so fun to just, like, I'm grateful and I want to do well out there. Like, I want to really surprise people. But if I don't, what a blessing it is to even be able to do the thing. And it doesn't have to be as big as Cocodona. It's your first ultra. It's even attempting your first ultra. Even if you fail, just keep showing up, because as long as you don't stop showing up, you never lose, right? As long as you don't stop showing up, you'll never lose a race, you know, because every time you toe the line, you could roll your ankle at mile 1 and be out, and you would have learned something or met somebody new that could impact your life. You just have to find it, you know, and that's my newest approach. And that happened pretty much at Midstate this year 3, was like, I thought that I could run well, but I've never run well out there, but I knew I was in good shape. But I'm just going to be really, really grateful for every single loop, and we're going to see where that gets me, you know, and it got me 3rd place. And at that race is insane for me and for really anybody. I mean, only a few people have done it. And so that's my advice, is like really understanding that you are in a place that not many people are ever going to get to, and really doing it for people who can't do it, people that have passed away. And this could be dark, but I think about people who don't have legs, you know, and like I could lose my legs today, God forbid, right? But if I did, like, I'd come out okay. But like, I want to run today because I have these legs, these God-gifted legs, you know, and that's, if I'm not psyched for the run, that's where my head will go there. My head will go to, you know, families in North Korea that aren't even allowed to run because they live under a dictator. Like, and that's just because they were born there. Like, how lucky are we to be right where we are and be able to go out my front door and run, or just so many things, you know? And like, so if you're looking for something to get you off the couch, it's all there, right? There's a ton of things. You just have to be real with yourself that you're really, really lucky to be where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you need a camera to follow you during one of your races, and you need to put together a documentary. Like, I think you could just piece that together really well with everything that you have to say. So maybe that's something in the future.
Yeah, maybe someday, Jaci. Yeah, we'll get there, you know. And that's the other thing, is like, I'm super young in this thing too, you know, and you see people that are like still doing incredible things after years and years, and that's always something to strive for too, you know. And you're never too old either, you know. We see somebody like, I don't know if you saw, Cameron Haynes ran like a sub 6 minute mile for 10 miles the other day. He's 58. Like, the guy's almost 60 years old, and he's probably gonna run a 2:40 marathon this year. Like, Andy ran Cocodona last year with like a torn
broken
hamstring
foot.
and a broken foot. Like, it's like, so like, the examples are all there. It's like, just don't ignore them, and like, you'll be that for somebody too, you know. Something you can be, like, if you want to be. So I just really, like, hope people chase their goals and never stop, right? Like, because that's the only time you can lose is when you stop. And of course, it doesn't have to be running, like, or faith or sobriety, right? Those are my things, right? But they don't have to be your things, and that's what's really important too.
Yeah. So what keeps you coming back to the last man standing format races?
I think it's the mystery of, like, how far can you go, or how long is it going to last? Like, that's really exciting, because like a 100-mile race, or even, well, we'll see about Cocodona, but like that's going to end at X mileage, and that's it. That. You just have to get there. Whereas the backyard is always a mystery. You don't know how long it's going to go. And last man standing format, like, and that's really intriguing, and something like, and the proof is like something like Midstate, where like it started like sub 100, I think, the first year, and then it got up to like a record year in 2023 with like 140 miles, and then this last year ended sub 100 again, just because of conditions. So like you truly don't know how long the race is going to last, and that could depend on the runners there, or the conditions, or anything. And that always excites me. And also, like, I haven't got to like find my limit in the backyard, so that's always like, to win one is like a blessing and a curse. It's like, oh, it's cool, I won, but it's like I didn't really get to like, how many more miles could I have done, and I don't get to know that, and so, because I feel like I could have ran who knows how, like 150 or more that day, and you don't get to know, and that's because Laz is who he is, and nobody gets to win, he says, because everybody else quit, and the winner doesn't get to find out how far they can go. So but I think that's what keeps me coming back, is like the mystery of it, that every time it's a new puzzle, and you don't know when, like, how many pieces there are, and that's kind of crazy, to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's fun.
You're part of the East Coast Adventures team, correct?
Yeah. David Compton and Mike Taylor and Matt Williams and Mary, like, amazing people. I mean, there's like 20 or 30 team members, but yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about the team, and like, I don't know, how that fits into your running, and how community has played a role in ultra running for you.
Yeah, that's a good question. And East Coast Adventures, they're made up in Knoxville. Like, that's why the name is East Coast. And they started really small, and now we have a big team that spans, pretty wide across the country. And they put on most of the races over there. A lot of stuff ranging from backyards to, I think their longest race right now is 130K trail race called the Cherokee in July. But I enjoyed both sides of it, right? In the beginning, like, you enjoy being unknown and showing up with no expectations. But now, like, I show up with a little bit of expectations, but like, I have like this whole family with me, and East Coast Adventures is like that family. And like, there's so much more than like providing, t-shirts and bags and like friction prescription and this kind of stuff. Like, that is like the cool material stuff. But like, we have group chats where we're praying for each other, and we're having good conversations, and like, I didn't know that really existed, because it's already niche, so like, how much more niche? Like, there's communities within the communities within the communities, and as much as we're a race team, like, I'd like to just call it a race family. And there's so many of them, right? Like, mine is East Coast Adventures, but there are people putting this stuff together all over the nation, all over the world, and it's what makes ultra running what it is that this kind of suffering is very unique. And to have people that you're able to do it with and have the conversations with and get immediate advice is so important and so helpful, So they've been incredible. This is my second year with them this year. And like I said, I was really hesitant to like fill out an application to be on the team, just because like I almost liked being the rogue nomad-ish, but it's been way more rewarding to be a part of a family and have a community, So to anybody who's afraid of that, I would say, take the leap. And in the worst case scenario is you're locked into a team for a year, and maybe you just don't enjoy it, and you can do your own thing the next year, You're not going to lose anything from it. Like, I could just not respond to the group chat, like turn off the notifications, and like, they wouldn't hate me or anything, It's just like, we might part ways next year, and they'd be fine with that too. But like, trying it out, finding a community is so important in this world, and so I would advise anybody to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of thinking about the other side of it, when your races have ended, has it been physical? Has it been mental? The majority of the time.
I've had a little bit of both.
Okay.
I'd probably, I'm trying to think, like, I guess I don't technically have any DNFs because, like, I just haven't won backyard. So I don't know, like, they don't count as DNFs on Ultra Sign Up. I don't know what to call them. Like, Mad Backyard, I had, I believe, a stress fracture. Like, that's where it started. And so that took me out at, like, mile 70 or so. And I ran on it for, like, 20 miles. But that was in my shin, and then I went to Midstate, and that was the same reason I went out of Midstate in June. It was like the same place. I just like kind of dragged it out longer, and then finally took some rest after that. So that's the 2 times I've been physically injured, where I felt like, you know, moving forward was the bad option. Like moving more forward was the bad option, because I can work through a lot of pain. Like I think I have a high pain tolerance. But there's like a give and take on like how far, you know, you want to push that thing, especially with something that like is a stress fracture where you could actually like fracture my tibia, and then, you know, who knows how long we can't run. The times that our mental failures are much more impactful, right? Where like you gave up because you justified a reason to quit. And it's way harder as soon as you get home. You know, and those are the ones that sit with you. Those are the ones you learn from. Like, you need to learn from is what I should say. Like, you have to sit down and, like, write down exactly what you thought and what happened, and then how to dissect, like, moving through that in the future. Tennessee Mile one year, which is the 40-hour version of Midstate Mile, I was going for the course record. I got 8 hours in, and my effort was so big that like I couldn't imagine doing it for 32 more hours. And that's the problem lied in me realizing that there was 32 more hours, and I couldn't digest how much more effort I was about to put into this race. Like, it seemed impossible. So instead of like just, you know, pushing that to the side and going out for the next loop and maybe, you know, dialing back on the speed and stuff like that, it ate away at my mind, like just knowing how much more there was. And so I wanted to quit. John talked me into not quitting, and then I eventually like left at 24 hours into the race. Like I quit. And like I said, my ankle hurt and stuff. And yeah, sure, my ankle hurt. Yeah, I've been running for 24 hours. Of course my ankle hurt. You know, like everybody's ankles hurt. You know what I mean? Like you can justify any injury in a race. Like I promise you that. It's the difference, the thing that changes is when you realize that injury will most likely go away, depending on what it is. Like a stress fracture, it wasn't going to go away, right? I ran on that thing for 10 hours at Midstate. Like, it wasn't going anywhere. But at my most recent race, like, I had knee pain at mile 8, right? It went away at mile 11. Like, it was just gone, you know? Or, like, you roll an ankle and your ankle hurts for, like, 2 miles, you know, 40 miles in. Well, that's all it is for 2 miles. Like, so a lot of things will go away if you like give yourself the opportunity to let them go away. But if you want to justify the injury and baby it and quit, you'll get there. You know, it'll be it's way easier to get to the quit than it is to get to whatever mile it is that the pain's going to go away, you know. But if you realize that it will go away, the reward on the backside of finishing the race or getting, you know, a new mileage PR or whatever the next thing is way better than the quit, you know, the feeling of the quit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had a mix of both. Yeah, it's always rough to quit mentally, you know. And John Cox says, you know, train the quit out of your life, and I've really applied that. And that's part of waking up at 3 a.m. Like, you know, it's like we're gonna grind, then we're gonna go to work, and then we're likely gonna grind afterwards. You know, like I have to learn and not to quit. And like today, yesterday running 12 miles, like get 8 miles in, and you don't want to do 12 anymore. And I could just like be done, and but it's like, oh, I told myself that I'm going to do 12 miles, so we do 12 miles. Like there becomes like a self-respect nature to it as well. that I really employ, that like I respect myself enough to do exactly what I said I was. And I didn't say it to anybody else. Like I'm not telling everybody else what I'm doing, you know, maybe myself and my girlfriend, but like besides that, it's like that's the only people that would know if I quit, and she wouldn't care, and you know, but I would once I got done. And that's the thing, is like you have to do what you say you're going to do, because every time it's a reward when you do that.
Yeah, I was literally going to ask about self-respect, and you filled in the blank, so I don't even have to ask it. I have a couple questions about Cocodona.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you're taking from your experience at Midstate Mile in the backyard format into Cocodona with you?
I think there's a lot of things, and one of the things I wanted to touch on that I kind of skipped over for backyards too is like the simplicity of running, how it's so much more simple than my daily life, right? Where I say like I think a lot and I work a lot, and like I do a lot of things in a day. You know, I wake up, I go to the gym, then I go to work, then I have a small business that I work on, and then I usually run, and like somewhere in there I got to fit in the family that I have, and I have to make dinner, and I have to do this, and like that's all in one day, right? Let's take a backyard. In one day, all I have to do is run a loop 24 times, sit, eat, drink, and that is it. Like, so the simplest, like breaking things down, like people ask me like, why do you like the backyard so much? I'm like, it's the simplest thing I do. It is the simplest thing I do, is run races. Like all I have to do is get to the next aid station or complete the loop or whatever the fixed time, whatever I'm doing, get to the next place, sit, eat, drink, run again. That's it. Like and they're like, oh, well, doesn't that physically? Sure, it physically hurts, but my mind is like, I'm just doing these things. Like this is what we're trying to focus on, and that's it. So like the simplicity of running is something that carries over into every style of race. And somebody might say like, oh, well, Cocodona, like that's a big race. Like you're not going to be able to break it down like that. You have to break it down like that, in my opinion. Like it has to become simple as soon as you like, and of course, like I'm dialing in what I want for between each aid station and stuff like that. But like that's making sure like I'm doing the hard work now so that it's easy on race day. You know, like what are we going to have here? What, like all that's happening now in my daily life, what I would call the hard life, so that the race is like easy life. You know, it's going to be physically demanding, and like I want to be there, you know, like I signed up to be here, I paid to be here, like literally. I love it here. It's simple, it's incredible, you know. And so those are things that I carry, and that I really wanted to speak to, is like the simplicity of running and what it brings me, like peace and almost just like a place of happiness, where like it's just so, it's hard but it's easy, you know. And I love that, because most of my life is so all over the place and like high intensity, that racing is almost low intensity in a way, you know. It's nice, it's peaceful.
I love that perspective. For any of your races up to this point, have you taken naps? Have you gotten any sleep in your races?
Just Midstate and Tennessee Mile.
Okay.
So and those like, and there were years at Tennessee Mile where I took like 3-hour naps and stuff like that. I wasn't successful those years, right? Like I was doing it because I felt sorry for myself. Like I was being comfortable, you know, and that's the only reason those naps were that long. This last year, I did the 40-hour again, and the intention was not to have a course record. It wasn't to place. It was just keep moving. Like I needed to find my sleep threshold, and that was a big deal because I was already signed up for Cocodona. So it starts at 4 p.m. I woke up that morning at 6 a.m. So like we're up for that whole time, which was, to me was good. Like if you're running the race, you probably don't like this, but like I'm training for sleep deprivation. So like this is all good for me, right? And I didn't sleep until hour 16. So I'd been up for 26 hours, and that was just, you know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then I was up back on the loop. And I'm not running the loop hard. Like I'm trying to do, you know, about 2.5 loops an hour or something like that. And then I slept again at 30, 35, maybe 36. So we got another 20 hours out of that, you know, 20, 30 minute nap. And I slept then, and then got up and told myself if I was in striking distance of like a certain place that I would go get it. and I was, and so then like I really like I burned myself out to get second place there. But so yeah, I was finding that, but that was the only time. And then at Midstate, I sleep every 12 hours because that's the only time you're going to get to sleep anyways. So I don't think I pushed far enough in the backyard to like need the sleep yet. Like I did 25 hours, but I wasn't feeling like sleepy or anything like that. And I would sit down in my chair and close my eyes, like just to make like to rest and like let's like get the heart rate down and stuff like that. But never was it sleep or intentional sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. So going into Cocodona, do you have a sleep strategy? Are you going to try to push it until you hit that threshold? Do you not want to sleep? Like, what are you kind of thinking about?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me this question, like, what's your sleep plan? And it's like, who has one? Does anybody, like, have one? Or, like, I'm going to rest at X hour or X aid station? Because, like, what if you get there and you feel really good? Like, do you force yourself to sleep? Because now, mentally, like, if I feel good enough to run, but I'm like, I have to sleep because I told myself, like, I'm not going to get sleep. There's no way. Like, because now I'm fighting my own mind, you know? And so I think for me personally, like I have to just do it on feel. You know, I have to be able to do it on feel. And, you know, as long as we get to that place with a pacer, hopefully, then we're good. Because, like, I can just keel over, like, on the side of the trail and be like, hey, give me 10, you know? And if not, you know, then we just find the next aid station and crash out there, you know, which could be a long time because the aid stations, or some of them are far. But, you know, you can back plan for that. If you're starting to feel sleepy and come into an aid station, like, you know, you could start then. But, yeah, it's going to be feel-based. Yeah. I hope to not sleep a ton. Like, I think that to be successful in the race is to move through aid stations as best as you can and not get stuck, you know, sleeping and eating and sitting. And that's what seems to be successful for everybody that does it well. I don't know if Dan Green slept at all last year, you know, and I'm not going for a Dan Green time, you know, but like if you want to be anywhere close, you want to mimic, you know, what's worked, and you know that guy, he's the course record holder. So
So what do you want to learn about yourself in 2026 with the training that you have lined up and the races that you're signed up for?
First of all is like finding the threshold of like body, mind, and spirit, you know, like I'm trying to push those things literally every day. So, sometimes it's really hard to think that I could get any better, you know, and I'm not saying I'm perfect and I'm at my level, but from where I've been, you know, 3-4 years ago to where I am now. And I wrote this down in my journal the other day. I've been actually journaling for like the first time. So that's kind of cool too. And it's been really good for me, but I was just writing down like how could it get better, like I had this huge life change 3 years ago, and in that time frame, like I keep making life changes that seem to be always helping me. And like I wrote in my journal how scared I was that I could devolve, right, that there could be the next change could be something that sends me backwards, and like how afraid I am of that. But then I knew, like I was writing and I'm like, well, the way we combat that is continuing to do what we're doing right now, you know, and continue to stack the healthy habits. And even if a bad thing comes across our lifestyle, like because we have this good thing in place, like we can move through the bad thing with healthy habits, and we're going to be okay. You know, like we don't have to go backwards. Like there could be a wall and there could be something we have to climb, but we don't have to digress, you know? And so what do I want to learn about myself in 2026 is just, you know, how much better can we get? How many more people can we help? You know, like my podcast threshold has been crazy lately. Like this is the 4th one in 2 weeks. And that's like, I don't know, it's like scary in a way because you don't want to be annoying either, you know, but I want to tell my story and I want other people to feel good about telling their own story. Because I'm just a really regular guy, you know, I work a 9-to-5 job, and I do some things that other people don't do, but every single person has a story like that, you know, and it's really exciting to be able to share and have people reach out and share where they've been and where they're trying to go or where they've headed. And my buddy today, we were on the trails running. I've known him since 2020. We used to party together, and he told me he's 3 months sober today. And I was like, and I didn't even know he was trying, right? And he's like, I wasn't really trying either, but like, he's like, from listening to you, and then like, I was like, I'll just give it a shot. Now, like, I can't find a reason to drink again. I'm like, dude, I've been there, you know? And like, and that's happening. My buddy was here 3 months ago and told me that he was about to hit a year. I didn't know he was even sober, you know? And he's like, well, I saw that it was going well for you. And I was like, Like, that's why we tell our stories, right? And that's why I want to tell mine. And that's why I want everybody else to tell theirs. Because I got so much from people like David and Chad Wright. And, like, yeah, sure, they're the big fellas. But then, like, I get the little tips from Sarah Harris and Dusty Baker, or, like, David Compton. He just broke the 50-mile record. What an inspiration. Or Mary, who's battled cancer 3 times. Like, these are real people with real stories, you know? And so they've all helped me, you know? And if we can help more people in 2026 and you know, help people come to faith, come to sobriety, come to fitness. I don't care what it is. I don't care what you're doing. Like, just do it the best you possibly can, you know, and that's what I would like to do or learn in 2026. How many people can we help, you know?
Yeah. We've definitely had a large impact so far in 2026. And I think, you know, every podcast episode is different. And I think with each one that you do, you can touch someone different who you were not even expecting to be able to touch. So I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah, and thank you for the platform, obviously.
Absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
Amazing.
So is there anything that you want to talk about before we get to our last 2 questions?
I don't know if I have anything. Like I said, I mean, I've been talking a lot. I'm a yapper.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I just don't want to forget things. And like, I guess I could talk about the 3 chambers of like ultra running. Like, I made this up, but like your
go for it.
Physical, mental, and spiritual. And like, and these things work. Like, you start with your physical chamber, and like you build this through training and stuff like this, and then your mental chamber. And what I say is your physical chamber will run out first when you're running, right? Like, your body will go first. The pain sets in first. And then you immediately drop into the mental chamber, where like your mind will start to tell you there's pain, right? So however strong that thing is, right, determines how far you can hold off, you know, quitting or continuing. And you build that from each time that you push through whatever that threshold is, right? Your chamber gets bigger. As the mental chamber drains, the last one, for me personally, like I said, if you're not a Christian, you can still be spiritual or believe in something. And that's where you rely solely on the Lord to push you farther than you are able to go as yourself, you know? So I think of that when I'm running. Like, I think of these chambers draining, right? And I think of when I'm training, I think of how much I'm growing them every time that something goes wrong or it's a hard run, but we get through it, you know, that I'm building X chamber so that next time we get depleted, it's farther than the last time. So that's just something I wanted to touch on.
Yeah. So do you think that you can use the chambers out of order? I mean, you can be in a good place physically in a race, right? But mentally you may not be in a good place, and you may not have anything else to hold on to except for that thing that you believe in, right? And that may ultimately get you back to the spot where, okay, now we're good physically again, and now we can work through the chamber in that order. Does that make sense? Like, can you use them out of order?
Yeah, that does make sense. Maybe the traditional fashion would be like, you know, the physical, mental, spiritual. But I mean, you could also, I guess, think of it now that you're saying that as like they all work at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, you're just maybe interchanging them in your mind, like you're tapping into each one, like when necessary, you know, like as the mental one goes, maybe you rely on your physical strength to get you through the mental barrier, or vice versa. And then also using the spiritual, like, I think you could. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't unlocked them in that way yet, you know. Like, and maybe I have, like, subconsciously. I don't know. Like, it's always seemed to me that the physical, like, I get sore before like my mind, you know, because I feel like that's when the questions start to come. Like, like, and I'm not saying like you get completely physically worn down where like you can't walk. Like, if you're at that point, like, you know, it's time to we gotta quit, you know. But I just mean like when that pain sets in is usually when it kicks over to my mind to override the pain, and that's where like I'm saying the mental chamber kicks in. If you start a race in a mental low spot, you know, then I think allow your physical chamber to carry you through, right, until, you know, your mental anguish, you know, subsides, which I do believe happens, just like what we talked about earlier with like the knee pain or the ankle pain or whatever. It's just getting through it, you know, relying on your other chambers to get you through maybe where one of them might be lacking.
Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that more on my runs and use that on race day. I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, thanks. I made it up on a run one day. That's what usually happens.
I love it. All right, so before we wrap up today, I ask 2 questions of everyone. The first being, and I feel like we've touched on this a lot, but if you just sum it up into a short synopsis, what advice do you have for runners who are hesitant to sign up for a backyard or the last man standing format?
There's nothing to lose, for one, right? Like, you can't lose by signing up for the race.
Yeah.
Like, even if you go out there and you fail the first loop, like, there's going to be so much encouragement there just because you signed up, and you didn't lose anything, you know, and that's huge. And that's for even the run out your door, you know. And I tell people this too: you never regret a workout, you never regret a run, right? Like, maybe during it feels terrible, and this could go for the race or your first backyard or whatever it is, it could feel absolutely terrible. You never regret it, you know.
Yep.
Even on the days you DNF and you may dislike the results, you don't regret that you signed up. You don't
Right.
say like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have went to that race at all, right? Because
Yep.
like, you understand that there's lessons to be learned, and even being able to go there is incredible. So that's what I would say is, like, there's nothing to lose, you know. You never regret a race, you never regret a run, you never regret a workout. And I tell people that all the time.
And if you could fuel with one source of fuel for the duration of your backyard, it could be realistic or completely ridiculous, what would you fuel with?
Yeah, probably maple brown sugar oatmeal.
Oh,
Yeah,
the best.
That's what I would go with. Like, I think if we're talking like I want to do well, but I only get one thing,
Yeah.
and we want to be efficient and with some decent taste, like that's where I'd be.
Yeah. Oh, that's the best flavor.
It is, yeah, 100%.
Dylan, thank you so much for this conversation. For those of you who want to follow along, what's the best way to follow you?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best. Just Dylan, DYLAN _ abnormal, ABNORMAL. And if I tell people this too, like, if you want to reach out for any advice with anything I've spoken to today or anything that I haven't to, I respond to everybody. Like, my main goal on this earth is to help others, you know, and help give purpose through, you know, fitness, faith, and sobriety. And so be vulnerable. Like, it's okay. Like, we all have a past, we all have traumas, and like, I would love to help anybody through anything they're going through, no matter what that is. And I may not know what you're going through, but I'll do my best to share what I've been through that can hopefully relate and help you through it. So if you follow me, just know, don't be scared to reach out. You know, I really enjoy human beings.
I'll make sure to put your handle in the show notes so everyone can find you. But thank you again. If you are listening to this and you've wondered whether you belong in the Backyard Ultra world, just let what Dylan has said be your reminder. Take it one day at a time. He says, if you did it yesterday, you can do it today. If you did it today, you can do it tomorrow. So until next time, just go one more hour or even one more step. Thanks for tuning in to One More Hour. If you enjoyed this episode, hit follow so you don't miss the next yard. And share it with a runner who loves pushing their limits. I'd love to hear your own stories of going one more. Connect with me on Instagram at the One More Hour Podcast. And if you could leave a quick review, it'll help more runners find the show and keep going when they want to stop. Until next time, just go one more hour.